A land without flowers is a place where you cannot call it land, but it is called a paradise without rainbow. Kaliespera si Matiates Kidipianes Rowena Canton. So I am the fifth presenter that will be screen recording for today in the title of Flower Beds in Mythology and Folklore. So first of all, before I formally start my presentation, I would like to apologize and thank Miss Canton that a last meeting about our oral recitation that I'm not really good at familiarizing and memorizing those gods and goddesses in mythology, but that was a learning for me that I should study them because they're not just a display of history, but it is a learning. We should get the learning, especially that they are very useful right now in the mythology and folklore subject. Next slide. Okay, this presentation consists of 3 subtopics entitled The Roles of Flowers in Mythology. The second subtopic is the symbolism of flowers. And the third subtopic we're going to talk about the different floral myths and their origins. Okay, before we start, my question is, have you ever received a flower? Actually, I haven't received yet. If you receive a flower, it's called sana all. Okay, just kidding. Okay, flowers do have variety of definitions and meanings in myths and different stories from the past. Flowers, they're associated or linked with purity, love, and beauty. Mainly, roses and lilies represent symbolic significance in mythology. So if you have ever received a flower, of course, you felt very special. Kaya ka man siya sa special someone or from your family. So you feel special also. Because it is associated with love and beauty, especially Valentine's Day, no? Nga, dakan siya kay manghatag og flower na. So, sa mga nahatagan lang, hindi po siya nga pamaagi. So, they are associated with a sweet purity of relationship. Okay, roses and lilies. Kana siya roses and lilies, they are the center also in this mythology because kasagaran, mo rin mga storya-storya sa mga tao, no? Nga, gods transformed, mura giparusahan ang usa ka god, or mga tao ba nga nakasaan nila and mostly gi-form nila into roses and lilies. That's according to legends. Okay, next slide. We're going to talk about the first topic, the roles of flowers in mythology. Flowers are delicate. They're colorful and frequently sweet-scented when they bloom. Flowers do have symbolic meanings in certain cultures. Floral gods are deprived from these properties of flowers. So like for example, dito sa Philippines, we praised na nadjutagikon nga flower, ato na siyang gihatagag respect. Like we respect the gods and goddesses in mythology. Like for example, Sampaguita, like that. So another country also, they praise gods and goddesses. Kana siya, nag-originate siya sa usa ka flower. So in various cultures, they respect for. Okay, the second subtopic, we're going to discuss about the symbolism of flowers in mythology. Okay, flower colors have taken on symbolic implications in various cultures. For example, white blossoms symbolize both purity and death. So, if we say white blossom, these are the sampaguitas or other white flowers. Santan, I think it's white. Actually, sa color maglibog, magoko sa high. And crimson blossoms are frequently associated with passion, vitality, and blood. And yellow flowers like sunflowers, like a narcissus flowers are often associated with the gold or the sun. And the ultimate level of enlightenment was depicted as a golden bloom growing from the top of the head in Chinese Taoist tradition. So we thought ang flower nag-origin na siya sa usa ka gods and goddesses in mythology, but also the colors. Also the colors di ay gikan pud na. So like for example, kanang white, mas-symbolize mo gid siya as a death, pero and purity and virginity. That's it. Okay, Okay, the goddesses. Diri natin sa goddesses. Chuchiquitzal, it is pronounced as Chuchiquitzal in our pronunciation. In early 1500s in central Mexico, there comes the goddess named Chuchiquitzal, which is the Aztec goddess of sexuality and fertility. Okay, her name means flower standing bouquet. So that is Chuchiquitzal. Next slide. Okay, not just in central Mexico in 1500s, they praise a goddess named Chloris, but also in the Greece, which is the Greeks. The Greek people, they had also a floral goddess named Chloris. Okay, she was married to Zephyrus. Zephyrus was the god of the west and wind. So this is Zephyrus and this is Chloris. So Chloris, she has an exceptional beauty, while Zephyrus, he is a winged god who brings flowers. Okay, Chloris was also called Flora by the Romans and honored her celebration or a festival called Floralia. Okay, a Floralia or a Flora, it is a religious practice in honor of the goddess of Flora at April 27 during the Republican era and 28 during Julian calendar. So that's it, Zephyrus and Chloris. Okay, right now we're going to talk about the variety and their origins. Let's start here. Over time, it's no surprise for us that flowers plays a certain role in mythology. They are the symbols of love. And according to legend, Greek and Roman mythology often features flowers partly because the ancient gods had a bad habit of turning people into them. That was weird, no? Peonies flowers are the traditional symbol of China, and research has shown that they do have anti-inflammatory effects, or we say they are the botanical flowers. Okay, let's start the story. Actually, it was a very interesting story of the two gods, the rival gods, that they have a situation of jealousy. Okay, first god we have Paeon. Paeon, he was a physician to the gods. So, his name is pronounced as Paeon or Paeon. He was a great physician to the gods and he was a very talented doctor, but his teacher, Asclepius, gets jealous to him when he successfully cured Hades' illness. So that was the time. So makapangutan na tanong nga, even those gods and goddesses in mythology, they have also a doctor because sa una magod, in mythology that time, I've read books about that or mga informations nga they are at war. Commonly to them, they are at war. Diba, mga sadata, manilang gamit, no? Mga Trojan, mga battlefield, like that. That's why they need a doctor. And a teacher, Asclepius. So, Asclepius, he was a teacher good. He was a medical doctor in the mythology, and he was the son of Apollo, hero and god of medicine in ancient Greek mythology. So, in order to save Paeon from the danger or from the rival of his teacher, Asclepius, so revenge of his teacher, Zeus. So he was a mortal god who transformed him into a flower called Peony. So that was a sad story. So I thought no nga ang jealousy naarag yun na sa mga human beings like us. But also before, di yun na malikayan, especially nga di gud sila gusto malabuan ng butanga. Like for example, like this week, dili ta makatuo, even Asclepius wanted to kill Paeon. That's why. And Peony has two opposing myths that account for its contradicting meanings. In one, the origin of compassion can be found, and the other, the more negative connotation that developed in the Victorian age is displayed. Okay, in one, they also, the Peonies get their name from the Greek word Paeon. In Greek mythology, Paeon was a physician to the gods, or we say a medical healer, who angered his teacher Asclepius after extracted a milky liquid from the root of a peony that cured Pluto. Asclepius was the god of medicine and healing, and he threatened to kill Paeon out of jealousy because he was outsmarting his teacher Zeus, save him by turning him into a flower called Peony. Okay, in addition, as what I've mentioned above in the presentation, there are some who believe Paeon, he was an Olympian god. Known as a physician to the gods, Paeon passed his divine days dabbling in medicine and the healing arts. And over time, this role was switched to Apollo, the sun god. Or it could be that the god was simply renamed from Paeon to Apollo. So Paeon made several appearances in literature, such as in Homer's Opus's and also in the Iliad and Odyssey. So in the Iliad, he miraculously cured Ares also, and the god of war had been seriously wounded by Diomedes. And as Homer tells it, Athena, the goddess of both wisdom and warfare, have the human hero Diomedes hurt Ares. Upon being injured, Ares hot-tailed it to Mount Olympus where Paeon applied medicine that gives Ares instant relief. In Homer's Odyssey also, Priam tends to Hades after Heracles shoots him with an arrow. And in the same epic poem, Homer describes the people of Egypt as wise above humankind because every man is a physician, the race of Paean. So, let's proceed to the next slide. Paeonia the nymph. So this was story also is tragic, okay? And according to Greek legend, the Paeonia began as a beautiful nymph named Paeonia, and Apollo rather liked this innocent young girl who was a bit of a flirt. Okay, one day, the two of them were carrying their usual bantering way when Athena happened along. So the goddess was not amused. She stamped her foot and called Fiona a brazen hussy, a harlot, a strumpet. Even Apollo thought Athena was overreacting but didn't think it was a good idea to tell her so. So Fiona, who hadn't meant any harm, was so distressed and shamed by Athena's unjust accusations that she blushed bright red. So she was still blushing when Athena changed her into a flower, which is a plant we know today as a red peony. So that's it for the Paeonia the nymph. Okay, Flora, or the Roman goddess of flowers. So Flora was the Roman goddess of flowers and spring, blossoming of florals, crops, vines, and trees. So the Floralia, so it was her own festival. So actually, it was Chloris. Muna na siya si Chloris nga form into a flower called Flora because she was the Roman goddess of flowers. So how did she form into a flower? Actually, she was kissed by Zephyrus. So that's it. So that's the reason why she transformed. Because the flower, after being kissed by Zephyrus, she has the power to make both nature and humans more fertile. So not just that, and during her celebration also, or her festival, people celebrate it like with success, like glory. And people wore bright colored clothes as a symbolic form of her festivity, the Flora. So that's it for the Flora, the Roman goddess of flowers. Daffodils are the story of Narcissus. Actually, I've read some informations about this or some books in the website, but I've watched a TEDx video. That's a YouTube channel where you can find those mythology stories from the past. So actually, I have watched the story of Eco and Narcissus. So Narcissus, actually, he was very selfish. He was a very selfish god that he's selfish of love selfish. Kasi he was fall in love in his face, not just other nymphs. So daghang mga nymphs nga naibog ni Narcissus tungod siyang kagwapo. And he was narcissistic. Kay kung siya kanang dili siya mo accept og love sa uban, he rejected it like sa mga nymphs nga gusto kay siya sunsonoron siya bisag asa, and then mo admit sa love, like mo confess, but he rejected all of it, even those gods nga naibog niya. So that's it. Wala jud na kaoyon katong night time nga si Narcissus ato siya sa river. Ang gaset jud ato nga tayma. Giset jud to. Dito was the setup of the goddess Nemesis. So he was the goddess of justice. So Nemesis was the goddess of revenge. And she didn't like the Narcissus behavior. And then that day, giset up niya nga si Narcissus niya siya sa river, gatanaw siya sa iyang lovely face nga kon siya nga gwapo, jud siya tanaw niya nga mas ni fall in love pa siya sa kagalingon. Nag self-love ra siya, although self-love is important naman, pero si Narcissus lahi siya. Nga dahil mo i-fall in love, but he rejected all of it. Then, he became distressed by the pain of unrequited love and turned himself into a daffodil flower. So if you've seen the Narcissus flower, actually I have watched a video also of Hades and Persephone in a TEDx YouTube channel. That's it nga, na Narcissus flower doon. A daffodil flower. Makita nyo dito nga, katungkoon na siya sa mga tong, that was, kunto siya ni Hades, no, katong black spirit. So that's it. That's why self-love is important, but pero ang pinaka-importante jud sa tanan if you reject naman, no, let's talk about love sometimes. If you reject naman, tarungan yung sulti. That's like Narcissus. So that was story. And then Iko datay, gasunsunod siya ni Narcissus kay na-attract siya. Tabay-tabi man to sila ni Hira, no nga. Dahil po si Hira, gipulan niya kay chit-chat. So that's why si Iko, niadto siya sa katong forest, nakita niya si Narcissus nga ng hunt og deer. So that kato si nymph, Iko, dito siya nakita ni Narcissus, dito siya na fall in love. So, yung gisod-sumay si Narcissus, pero wala mo dyan ikon si Narcissus, Narcissus rejected Iko. That's why si Iko nato siya sa cave, yung nagkahilis siya, basta katong nasad na siya og maayo. So, na-dissolve siya, moto ang katong Iko nga voice, naroon dito siya sa cave, dapat sa ikon. Tuningo siya, you. So, that's it for the Daffodils, the story of Narcissus. Next slide, let's proceed to the next slide. Okay, Sunflowers, the story of Clytie and Apollo. So this was a story also, a tragic love story. So naga siya mga tragic love story, no? Okay, this myth or this legend tells the story of the water nymph called Clytie. She adored Apollo that much, and over her life, Apollo left her to the sea for the goddess Leucothea. So that's it, si Apollo, kansa na siya mga womanizer. So nakuha na siya ka nagkasawsaw na pag-womanizer ni Zeus. And then, Clytie drowned in sadness. As she watched, Apollo crossed the sky, she transformed into a sunflower because her face permanently towards the sun. So that's a tragic story of Clytie and Apollo the sun god. So that's it. Let's proceed to the next slide. Okay, brief. So we have discussed 4 flower myths out of 9. So just breathe. Few more slides to go. Okay, anemones, and I don't know if it was pronounced as anemones or anemones, and the death of Adonis. Okay, Adonis was an exceptional, handsome mortal lover of Aphrodite. He spent much in hunting more than spending time with Aphrodite. So before we proceed to this explanation, so let me tell you a short story about this, no? So actually, I have read kana siya nga story. Ang lola ni Adonis, so Adonis was one of the 2 mortals the goddess of love, Aphrodite, ever fell for the other being. And then, as I read the story also, dito siya ko nga namangha, grabe ang mga sumpa kung sa mga goddess sila na makaingon nag-revenge, tinod-on dyan nila ang revenge. Okay, before the birth of Adonis, his grandmother, Kenchrys, had made a fatal mistake of boasting that her daughter Mira was more beautiful than Aphrodite. So si Aphrodite, a goddess man siya of beauty, because si Aphrodite was known to her beauty sa tanang goddess sa before. Okay, that time nga nasuko si Aphrodite. Ang gibuhat ni Aphrodite, iyang parusahan ang lula ni Adonis, which is Kenchrys. Okay, the goddess didn't like that one bit, so she punished Kenchrys in the most horrible way. She made her daughter fall in love with her husband, the Syrian king Thais. So that's it. So pag sumpa na, so wala ang control naman imo na kay once gikuha na ka sa mga goddess because they are very powerful before. Okay, and then that's the time na si Mira, niato siya sa kwarto sa king, which is into her father's bed, and made love him to the dark. So, diskontento jud si ang katong hari, which is Mira's father, King Thais. Nagkuha siya glam, ngitkit mo to kadaga, kuha siya glam, tapos yung gispatan, and then yung nakita ngayon itong anak na si Mira. This went on for a couple of nights until Thais finally brought in a lamp to the room so that he might learn the identity of the young woman so desperately in love with him. Okay, horrified by the discovery that she is none other than his daughter. So, kuan ka siya ang story, no? Pero, mao man siya nahitabo pagka niadto. So, let's continue the story. Okay, Thais immediately raised his sword and wanted to kill Mira, but she managed to escape at the last moment. So, that's it. Ang gibuhat ni Mira, mura na siya ka naging yung kay napuno na sa mga kuan, usa pa ba jud iyang buhaton. And then, to make matters even worse, So she realized that that's the time she fled to the palace and sorrowfully wandered through the world for many months. To make matters even worse, soon enough, she realized that she was pregnant. So she started praying to the gods for salvation. It was a strange prayer. She said, "Oh gods, if you will listen to my prayer, I do not shun a dreadful punishment to deserve. But now, because sukat to no nga, wala siya kasabot sa iyang buhaton. Imbis ang punishment, mapunta sa iyang mother, but napunta ni Mira. That's si Mira, nahimo siyang so gidungog iyang mga kato iyang gi-shout sa mga gods, and then that's the time the gods transform her into a mere tree. And her tears momentarily turned into drops of myrrh. And just a few days later, a wild boar, aniagito siya sa katong punuan sa myrrh tree, and appears it shrunk with one of its tusks. Miraculously, this caused the tree to crack open. That's the time nga niguwa na si Adonis ito as a result. This baby boy was none other than Adonis. The Naiads rushed forth to protect it, and they laid him down on the soft leaves, and they anointed him with the tears of his own mother. So that's a story, and that's the time also nga si Aphrodite happened to walk by this myrrh tree, and the exact moment, noticing the absence of a mother in the beautiful face of the baby boy, she decided to take it with herself. She secretly hid it in a chest and trusted the chest to Persephone. So years passed, and Adonis grew into a handsome youth, more beautiful than any mortal ever beheld by human or divine eyes. And when the time came for Persephone to give Adonis back to Aphrodite, who was for the moment head over heels infatuated with Adonis, the queen of the underworld refused to do that. Okay, the two goddesses took their disagreement to Zeus. So we cannot summarize the story because that's what kato na siya no nga a short shot, a one shot story na to siya. Okay, that's it. And then that's the time nga na-lover na silang duka. So they form into a lover, Adonis and Aphrodite. But hilig si Adonis og panghunt. So while hunting, unfortunately, while hunting, he was killed by a wild boar. Kasi Aphrodite, ganahan dyan siya nga naadyo sa kilid niya si Adonis. But Adonis, wala siya naminaw sa mga advice ni Aphrodite, iyaring gibaliwala. And Aphrodite left sorrow in his death as she held him in her arms. His blood mixed with her tears, and suddenly a red anemone flower sprung up where tears land. Ever since, this flower symbolized sorrow and death or forsaken love. And that's it, the story of Adonis and Aphrodite. A very tragic legend ever. So, ang katong mga legend story, dili pa na siya tragic dring dapita. Napay more tragic. So, let's listen. Okay, let's proceed to the red tulip story, the origin of Farhad and Shireen. Okay, the undying love story of Farhad and Shireen were told many cultures and traditions from different countries. Farhad was a lowly craftsman, a humble engineer, artist, and he famed for his skill at carving rock, who served Shireen, the queen of Armenia. Farhad fell in love with Shireen. So, before, maunto no nga, dapat makasal sila, example, a royal princess, dapat makasal siya sa usa ka prince or a king. Yeah, ang papa ni Shireen, the king, kanang dili siya gusto nga magkadayon sila si Farhad and Shireen kay Farhad, wala siya kanang mga royal responsibility. That's why iyan tutol siya kay ang level man sila og kinabuhi ni Shireen. Okay, Shireen's family were against the two married. In order to dissuade Farhad from his love for Shireen, Khosrow set him the impossible task of carving a tunnel through Mount Behistun. Before starting this arduous task, Farhad carved the likeness of Shireen into the rock face. It was the mummy that is captured in these two miniature paintings. Actually, wala na ko na-paste ang katong picture nga paintings no nga. So mismo dito na fell in love si Shireen ni Farhad nga nag-carve siya og rock sa naong ni Princess Shireen. Okay, let's continue. So Farhad find a way to impress Shireen's father, the king, that he really loved his daughter Shireen. So dito nga time, Farhad didn't stop iya jung i-proceed, iya makig-marry siya ni Shireen. So the king was upset. He wasn't happy. He sent a messenger to Farhad to lie that Shireen had died. Farhad took his own life. And when Shireen heard the sad news, she also took her own life. And as their blood pooled together, the red tulips grew. So that's the story of the red tulips, the origin of Farhad and Shireen. Okay, next slide is the hyacinth. The god Hyacinthus was a very handsome, Spartan prince and hero in Greek mythology. Apollo, Zephyrus, Boreas, and other several gods attracted to him, but the prince chose Apollo over his other suitors. The gods were jealous because of this. So in mythology also, nadjay gods nga ilang lover pod kay usa ka god. That's it, no? So karon atos lang gitawag nga gays. That's it. So mas gipili ni Hyacinthus, God Hyacinthus, si Apollo over his other suitors like Zephyrus and Boreas. So the gods were jealous. They were envied because of this situation. One day, Hyacinthus wanted to impress Apollo through a game of discuss. So when say discuss, mura siya desk. Mura siya kanang desk. Kabandi kana siya mostly gipagamit siya sa mga athletics. Mura siya kanang bugat kina siya nga desk. So ilabay-labay na siya tunulay. Zephyrus' plan was to make a move and blow the discuss to take Hyacinthus' life. So because of jealous lang, because of envy, si Zephyrus' dark plan was to kill Hyacinthus. So Apollo was dismayed and refused to let Hades take Hyacinthus' soul to the underworld. Instead, he transformed Hyacinthus into a flower. So that's the story of the hyacinth flower, the origin of Hyacinthus. The carnations. So not all flowers lang came from a goddess na siya origins from the mythology. They transform into a flower because of love, hatred, because of some situations that some other gods also punish them. Okay, carnations. In Korean culture, carnations have different purposes. They are used in divination to protect the fortune of young women. If the top carnation dies first, the girl will suffer punishments in the afterlife. The middle one shows the suffering of her youth, while the bottom part, it means her life will be filled with turmoil. So that's it. And according to Christian legend also, that carnations originally appeared after the crucifixion of Christ, growing in the spots where the Virgin Mary's tears fell to the earth. This is said to be how the carnation became associated with the mother's love. So let's also, what do carnations symbolize? So carnation symbolized love. Following on from devotion, carnations also symbolize love, whether it's a familial love, romantic love, or the love of a friend. Carnations will make for a lovely gift for many occasions like Mother's Day, birthdays, or anniversary. So the question here, what deity is associated with carnations? Carnations are known as the flower of gods, guys. In Greek, Dios means Zeus, aka God, and Anthos means flower. So that's it. So the last question, are carnations bad luck? Believe it or not, in some cultures and countries around the world, they believe that carnation is thought of as bad luck. So sa uban di ay bad luck ni siya. Why? Especially in the country France, because the flower is also used in Korea to tell the fortune of a young girl. Ano naman ko na siya, nga na ibang country believe that this was carnation. Kaya this, once gani, mismo ako kanang dili ko ganhang makibaw kung saan akong pad, di ba, laing siya maminaw nung what if ang death ni mo doon lang kayo. So it's bad for you to analyze or to think of it nga kay na nga butang ba nga murag po na siya immortal lang siya para nimo kay na ibutang nga makabaw kasi imo nga bad luck baka ana nga time or something. So not just in France, they treat carnations as a bad luck flower, but also in Korea. So that's it for the carnations. Okay, these are the flowers in mythology that we have discussed earlier. We have the Paeon, or precision to the gods, the very talented doctor, the Phaeonia the nymph, that's the punished by Athena because of jealous to Apollo also. Flora the Roman goddess of flowers, that was the origin of Flores, that her festival was called Floralia. Therefore, the story of Narcissus, the narcissistic god who falls in love with himself only. Sunflowers, the story of Clytie and Apollo. So Clytie, the nymph who fell in love with Apollo, but Apollo, so not saying si Apollo walay gugma dyan niya. That's why si Apollo left her to the sea with the goddess Leucothea. That's why Clytie formed into a sunflower, because her face permanently towards the sun. Anemones and the death of Adonis. That's Adonis was killed by a wild boar, and the red anemone sprung up when their tears, when Aphrodite's tears and Adonis' tears are formed. Tulis, Farhad and Shireen, like a Romeo and Juliet love story. When Farhad heard the news that Shireen died, and also Shireen killed himself also. Hyacinthus and Apollo, like Hyacinthus, he chose Apollo over his other suitors like Zephyrus and Boreas. He was killed by a game of discuss. He was killed by Zephyrus. Carnations in mythology. So, kato siya ganina, no? As what I've mentioned earlier, it is also related in mythology because it is a myths and legend stories. Like, some other countries consider it bad luck in Korea and France. So, that's it for today's afternoon. Sif Cristo para puli. Thank you so much.